We are one step closer to the NFL draft, and we are still hitting the rookie content here over on our podcast. I got Dave Kluge with us, and what better way to talk about all these prospects than speculating ourselves with a mock draft? But we're going to do something special. I did a mock, Dave did a mock, we barely talked about it, and we're going to argue right here on the Fast Draft Pod. All right, Dave, which version of the mock you in? You in like 3.0 now? I know we're like in that time loop where we're just like barely adjusting things and waiting for the next thing to happen.
This is mock 2.0 for me. So mock 1.0 came out the Monday morning that legal tampering started. So it was really fun to just publish a mock and then within like 2 hours have everything age terribly. But in all seriousness, I think I did okay. And actually, when I was doing mock 2.0, I reached out to Clayton Gray, our managing editor over at Footballguys, and I said, hey, is it okay that a lot of my picks are still the same from mock 1.0? Because my top 8 hasn't changed. Once I get outside of the top 8, then there was quite a bit of shifting. But this is such a unique draft where everybody holds their picks. Like, there have been no first round trades, and this is the way the NFL forefathers dreamed of the NFL draft, right? Like, the worst teams getting the best players. So just for the sanctity of preserving this really nice round one, I haven't put any trades inside my mock draft, and I'm hoping that we make it, a month out without any trades and everybody still picks from their spots.
Exactamundo, man. You nailed it here. It's like so you said, it's just the way God intended. If you're bad, you should just take the best player. You can't, let's not get cute, and it feels pretty scratch. Like, is there any mock draft tournaments going on? Because I feel like this is the year to win. You like when NFL was doing that. But I mean, I expect some trades to happen. I'm going to talk about where I expect that to go. But it's like you said, I think the top of this draft is going to be pretty scratched. So we'll jump right into it. We'll start with my pick, and then we'll go with yours, Dave. 101. It's Cam Ward, right? Do you have anyone else?
No, it's definitely Cam Ward. Everything the Titans have done this offseason feels like they're just setting the stage to bring in Cam Ward. They've already made investments in the offensive line. They've got Calvin Ridley there, which I'm not crazy about, but I've been floating around this idea. Think about what Brian Callahan did in Cincinnati back in 2019. They had the 101 pick there, and they used that on Joe Burrow, and then at the top of round 2, they took T. Higgins. And you look, there's a lot of wide receivers that are going to fall into that late first, early second. It wouldn't surprise me if they follow that exact blueprint, not only going with Cam Ward first overall, but then taking best available wide receiver at the top of round 2 to play opposite Calvin Ridley. And then they can start to rebuild this offense that Brian Callahan's imagining.
Yeah, 100%. And like someone like the Brown, basically everyone but the Giants in this top 5, I expect to maybe even trade back into the first with some of these other teams to go get some of these wide receivers, depending on where they fall. So yeah, like the Titans can't afford to get cute here. Cam Ward, I've been a hater on him, but I've just come around. Not when I say a hater, I just don't think he's as good as what some people say he is, but that is indicative of the entire class. With that being said, Cam Ward would probably be the QB 3 or 4 in last class, which is pretty good. And I think he's better than Mykel Penix even. So if they're willing to take Mykel Penix in the first round, which could be a mistake, I'm willing to take someone like Cam Ward. And if anyone out there is maybe a Will Levis truther, we should probably give that up unless something happens. I don't know if they're going to take Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter here, but I think people are holding out a little too far on the next year's class, especially when a lot of these quarterbacks are staying 4 and even 5 years because it just benefits their careers that much. Here's where I'm curious. We're going to have a differential, so I'll give mine first. Number 2, we got the Browns. It's Shedeur Sanders. And this is ugly for me, for a lot of people here. I just don't think they can afford to be cute. We talked about this a little bit pre-show. The Browns, guys, fucked. They're fucked. I'm sorry. Like, what are you going to do if you are this franchise? You have Deshaun Watson, and you keep saying they're kicking the can. They're like, well, that's future Jimmy Haslam's problem. That's future Brown's problem. You still need a quarterback. Jerry Jeudy's there. That's something as far as wide receivers go. So they're not forced to take Ted or Travis Hunter here, even though they could use someone like Travis Hunter. If they trade back, I think they're at risk for the Giants maybe taking somebody or the Raiders. I don't know, man. Who do you got going here? Who's your pick?
I've got Abdul Carter going here, and this is a team that obviously knows the value of a dominant pass rush. They just gave $160 million to Myles Garrett, and I think that having Abdul Carter playing opposite just immediately gives them, one of the best pass rushing duos in the NFL. I could totally see him going Shedeur Sanders here, and there aren't a lot of mocks that have Shedeur falling outside of the top 3. Mine does. We'll get to Sanders in a little bit. But yeah, you just look at that situation right now. I mean, maybe they right the wrong and take Shedeur Sanders and bench Deshaun Watson, which would be the smart thing to do. But we're talking about the Browns here, and when do the Browns ever do the smart thing? So I'm not really planning on them doing the smart thing. It's just right now they are shackled to Deshaun Watson. If they cut him this year, $172 million in dead cap. If they cut him next year, $135 million in dead cap. Then they've got these void years where they're taking $53 and $18 million cap hits in the future. It's going to take them a long time to dig themselves out of this hole. So even though they have an expensive quarterback on roster right now, I look at them very much so as a rebuilding team where they need to take the best player available. And you can argue that Abdul Carter is the best player available in this draft.
Yeah, and I love the point that you made on being in a rebuild mode, that they have so much money tied up in Deshaun Watson and in cap. Now Myles Garrett is going to go against the cap there, that they have to do every bit of rebuilding in the draft, and they can't really afford. Like, I could see them trading back and getting more picks maybe, but I have a hard time thinking that they're going to get too cute here. But again, it's the Browns, like these teams that I feel like it's a rot from the top down, and we keep seeing why some of these teams stay bad. Like I worry about the Jaguars because like they just can't seem to get it right because of Shad Khan. Like I hate to say it, but it's the way she goes. And right now, Abdul Carter, like we have our best ball tournament going on for IDP. If you're into that, Abdul Carter's going 29 now. That's ahead of like Greg Rousseau. A lot of people here. A lot of people are comparing him to Michael Parsons, and as someone I scouted him, that's not just from he went to Penn State and they both wore the same numbers. They are both incredibly versatile players, where I think Michael Parsons is better on the D line than he is standing up. I think it's a little bit reversed for Abdul Carter, but we won't spend much time on that.
The one thing I'll say about Carter, just to put a bow on this conversation, is there's already some concerns about his foot potentially needing surgery. And I don't know if there's anything more Browns imaginable than spending a pick on a top 2 player and then him immediately announcing afterwards that he's going to need season-ending surgery. So that just makes sense for Cleveland right there, that they'll draft a guy who's going to have to redshirt his first year.
So let's just call it right here. If like the Patriots or someone else drafts him, then he'll be rookie of the year. If it's Hall of Famer. If the Browns get him, we're done, guys. The juju and the rot spreads too deep. Before we go any further, we're new over here. We're going over the Fast Draft Pod. Hit that like and subscribe button on the audio side. Leave us a review there, and I'm going to give away some money because, like we said, we host best ball tournaments. Comment which pick you like best, or tell us who mocked the best, me or Dave, in the comments, and I will give you $100 match deposit. If you're over there on the audio side, you want to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, I will do the same for you. Just let us know. You can reach me in the comments, shoot us an email, does not matter. There's several ways in the description to get a hold of us, as well as that code to get a $50 match deposit anyway. You're going to get $50 in match deposit, whether you leave something or not. So if you want a little bit extra, go ahead and leave a comment. And both of these mocks I'll have in the description. Dave's will be up. Mine will be up on Roto Underworld. If it's not up within the 24 hours on Roto Underworld on my end, it'll be up there on the next day. With that being said, the bills are paid. The dogs are fed. I don't have kids yet. We'll go over to the Giants. The third pick, I think it's a no-brainer for them as well. They deserve to go best player available. They don't have Shedeur Sanders here, but I think that they've kind of showed their hand. This is another reason why I think Shedeur goes to the Browns, or someone trades up or something happens, is because the Giants have brought in Jameis Winston and they've brought in Russell Wilson. So they kind of think that they're not going to get a quarterback, or maybe Sanders sucks. That is another option. But Travis Hunter, This gives them best player. He can play opposite Malik Neighbors. They can have Wandell in the slot, and they have probably one of the best receiving cores immediately for whoever is playing quarterback, either be it this year or next year. And then they have someone in the secondary, because another thing about the Giants, they don't have a cornerback either. So I think this hurts him as far as a fantasy standpoint a little bit, like perception value, because like, well, now he's a wide receiver 2 to neighbors. He's not going to be force-fed targets. But did you see his reception perception, Dave?
Yeah. Green like a Christmas tree. Love
It's
to see
green
that.
like a Christmas tree.
Yep.
Yeah, I've told everyone that he's probably the best wide receiver prospect, and everyone comparing him to Devin Hester is crazy. I feel right about that. But that's my pick, Dave. Who do you have going to the Giants?
That's who I've got too. I mean, it just makes too much sense. Their two biggest weaknesses right now are cornerback, and they need somebody to play opposite Malik Neighbors, and they can get two birds stoned at once here, as the kids like to say, by taking Travis Hunter. Dory Jackson, they lost him to Philadelphia. Deonte Banks just has not been the answer that they had hoped for. So from a fantasy perspective, this gets really interesting, because you assume that he'd probably be the number 2 to Malik Neighbors, but with the glaring weakness that they have at cornerback, he might actually play full-time cornerback to start his career here. Now, I think that's one of the things with Travis Hunter, especially in Dynasty, is, even if he's drafted and the coaching staff that comes out says we're going to use him in this way, full-time receiver, with the unique skill set that he has, that can change the same way front offices change and teams change and coaching staffs change. If Joe Schoen isn't there next year, or if Brian Daboll isn't there next year, who knows what they can do? They can bring in a new coach that could say, you know what, you're actually better suited here. So I think that his fantasy value is constantly going to be changing depending on who's coaching him. But I think that this year, if he gets drafted, I think we'd see him playing more at cornerback in New York, with maybe 10 to 15 snaps per game at wide receiver.
That receiving core is so bad that just play it. Just do the same thing that Deion did. Just play him, man. Especially for me, it's like all those guys you mentioned, specifically Daboll. Because Daboll, I feel bad for him. He's just like, wow, I'm chained to Joe Shane. That rhyme just kind of worked out.
To John Mara. I mean, it just goes up the ladder, and it's just all bad.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If I'm Daboll, I'm like, this ain't on me, dog. Like, I'm trying to cook, but you left me Daniel Jones as a sous chef. And paid him, and then you took away, Saquon Barkley. I'm playing him, dude. I'm like, all right, dog. When you need water, let me know. But if not, you're going to be out there. Get prepared to play 100% of the snaps, buddy. That's what I'm going in thinking. And I'm not going to lie, call it bias, man. Because of that reception perception profile that was just so high. And then for you guys that don't know, Matt Harmon charts all the routes that he wins. It is one of the best indicators of just how good an individual wide receiver is, regardless of what his quarterback and the team is around him. Green is very, very good. It's hard for me to think that they shouldn't give him as many targets, especially if you got Tweedledee and Tweedle Weird over there. And who's weird? Like, I like Jameis Winston. They're two kinds of weird. Jameis Winston, I like that weird. Russell Wilson, you're not invited back to the cookout, dog.
Yeah, it's creepy weird.
That's creepy weird. Yeah, I don't like that at all. We'll keep it moving. We'll go down to the Patriots, and it sucks, man. I'm a Pats fan, but I have to play it straight, because I took Travis Hunter off the board. That just leaves Will Campbell.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about his arm size. I'm not going to talk about it. 3/8 of an inch. If your wife isn't worried about 3/8 of an inch, then you shouldn't be either, guys. That's all I've got to say here. The Pats need help. I think, like we already said at the beginning, Dave, that there are some good wide receivers that can be had if they trade back into the first or at the top of the second, like Elick Aymanor, who I like, Jalen Noel, a couple of these guys. Let's say Luther Burden can even fall down there to where he is attainable for some of these guys. Just go help Drake May and get Will Campbell. That's it. Get it. Help your quarterback. In fantasy, you know who this helps? The entire team. What about you, Dave? Who do you got going here?
Will Campbell as well. And Mike Vrabel just came out yesterday and said that they view him as a left tackle. Now, this time of year, once we get past the combine and past the pro days and close to the actual draft. It could be a lot of smoke and mirrors here, but we have seen, if you look at how Vrabel kind of built his teams out in Tennessee, he likes to have linemen there, and they'll spend those early picks on linemen. And Drake May was great last year at making lemonade out of lemons when he was just behind a porous offensive line getting teed off on. But if they're serious about his development, they need to get him some protection up front. And like you said, there's going to be a lot of day 2 receivers available. That's another pressing need for him. I don't think there's any receiver in this class that garners a top 4 pick. So I think here you got to go with the safe pick in Will Campbell, and then on day 2, whether it be in the second or the third round, then you can address the wide receiver position.
Yeah, man. And let's just say if they trade back or something, which I think is possible. Yeah. Let's say there's Membou who they could get, who I like. I like Kelvin Banks.
I mean, in my mocks, Sanders would still be on the board, where a QB needy team might be wanting to move up here.
Want to trade up.
Pick. Yeah.
Yeah, like this is why I said, like, we're not going to do trades, but this is where I'm thinking the first trade alert's going to happen, where I think the Pats are willing to listen for whoever is willing to make that call. Love it. And like I said, guys, his arms are 3/8 of an inch shorter than what they're supposed to be. It's fine. Next to the Jaguars, this is what I worried about, Dave, is like football, we think a lot alike. Now that we get here to the Jags, I know we have a different pick here. It's Abdul Carter going to the Jags. They're in best player available. The only thing that you have is a quarterback, and his son, that's debatable. I think Trevor Lawrence is fine. They could go wide receiver here. You still need a receiver. But just get who some people think could be a Hall of Fame. Like I said, if he needs foot-ending surgery, who cares? You need a lot. I don't think the Jags are going to be playing for the playoffs this year. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they have a turnaround like the Texans did, but I doubt it. Like I said, I already kind of talked to you guys about Carter when Dave had him to the Browns, so I won't hit on that too much further. Who do you have going to the Jaguars at this point?
I've got Mason Graham going there, still the defensive line, so kind of in the same frame of thought as you, and that's probably, if you look at it on paper right now, probably the strength of this Jaguars team as a whole is their defensive line. They've got Josh Hines-Allen there. They've got Trayvon Walker. They've got Eric Armstead. And I think that putting a guy like Mason Graham in the middle of that line would just be so hard for offenses to game plan around. So again, kind of the same thing you're saying, best player available. My mock shook out a little bit differently, but I think that at 5, if Abdul Carter's off the board, the next best player available is Mason Graham, and I think it makes a lot of sense for them to go after him here.
Yeah. And he's one where I feel like him, Kenneth Grant, and some of these other guys, basically you could do this for the whole Michigan defense. We're bored with them. They're like, is Mason Graham really that good? I'm like, I think he's fine, and I think your team should have him. So I love it. If you're in that best ball tournament, let's see where Graham is going. He's way down there.
Interior defensive linemen aren't typically guys you want to go after in IDP. Stat accumulation isn't there. They're more of just a cog that's going to slow down offenses than they are a guy who's going to rack up a lot of points. So I think this is a good football move, but for IDP purposes, I wouldn't be too crazy, especially when you look at the other guys that are on that line. I mean, unless this is a team that's racking up 100+ sacks a year, which would probably not be possible, there's probably just not going to be enough to go around.
And it's like, you should just ask yourself, is he Aaron Donald, the greatest interior defensive lineman ever? Probably not. So you just don't draft him unless you just need to for some random reason. All right. Now we're going to get to the fun stuff. I think we might have done the same thing here. Over to the Raiders.
We did not.
We didn't do the same thing?
We did not, no. I'm interested to see who you got going here, though.
Oh, okay, because I know we didn't here, because I know who you're going to pick, so I'll get mine out of the way here. They got Geno Smith. Mm-hmm. They have Jacoby Myers. They could go wide receiver here, but I just know Pete Carroll, and I think Ashton Jeanty goes here, whether or not the Raiders are the ones picking or someone trades up. So this is kind of like the Raiders should pick him, or if you really want Jeanty, or you feel like you should trade up for a running back in the first round, I think is insane. You could go do that here. I don't know, man. This seems like the best spot for Jeanty because there's nobody on that team. Dylan Laube and Zamir White.
I think
Like
Amir
that's,
Abdullah might be there.
I mean, oh yeah, I forgot about
Brandon
Amir
Bolden,
Abdullah.
like they got some,
Brand,
they have names on the depth chart.
yeah, they have bodies. They have true Jags, and I'm not talking about me, but they have just a guy over there. They have like, wow, you're a body. You can fill a roster spot. We technically need 3 running backs.
Oh, Raheem
So
Morris, Sincere
yeah,
McCormick. Yeah, they like I said, names.
yeah, the ghost of Raheem Morris. So I'm gonna make a guess
Raheem
here for the
Mostert,
rate.
sorry.
Raheem Mostert. Yeah. So yeah, that's how bad it is, guys. I've forgotten Raheem Mostert's name. A little disrespectful. I'll allow myself to acknowledge that. I'm guessing you're going Shedeur Sanders here.
I am, yeah, and I just think it makes so much sense. Like Geno Smith is the perfect bridge quarterback for Shedeur Sanders to learn from. Very similar play styles. I think it just makes a ton of sense. And so many people are quick to say, like, well, the Raiders, they have addressed their quarterback need by trading for Geno Smith, but feels a lot like last year when everybody said that about the Falcons and they gave Kirk Cousins this big contract and they said, well, they're certainly not drafting a quarterback. And then they went out and they drafted Penix, who ended up winning the job. I could see something similar happening here. And the Raiders came out and they said that Geno Smith is going to be their long-term quarterback, but that trade was almost a month ago. And there have been no rumblings about an extension or anything like that. So it wouldn't shock me if they take Sanders here and kind of allow him to be that bridge. I do like the Ashton Jeanty pick, but just to play devil's advocate, I can't stop thinking about the fact that Zach Charbonnet was drafted by Pete Carroll in Seattle from UCLA, where Chip Kelly, now the offensive coordinator for the Raiders, was the head coach. So he's got ties to the offensive coordinator and the head coach there. If you've heard Clint Kubiak in Seattle talking about this backfield at all, he hasn't even mentioned Zach Charbonnet's name. It has just been all, we want to get the ball to Ken Walker. So if they don't take Jeanty here and they go with Shedeur Sanders, wouldn't be surprised to see them potentially trade a day 3 pick to try to get Zach Charbonnet over in Las Vegas.
That's not crazy. And another thing too is like Caleb Johnson. And I told everyone I think he's going to fall. A lot of people I think he's a first round running back. And I'm like, that's insane. That's that's not
I'm ready
true
to put
at all.
RJ Harvey ahead of him at this point.
Yeah. And I'm not there, but, I think he'll be a target for them, and him in the 2nd or 3rd round, that is good. The first round, Caleb Johnson, y'all are wild for that. Then there's Quinshon Judkins is someone that they can get. It's just like Ashton Jeanty has to go somewhere, and it's just where. I know a lot of these, like Daniel Jeremiah and guys that I respect, really, really like Jeanty a lot. They even like a lot of these running backs to go 3rd round. Yeah. It's just hard for me to see as a team building standpoint why any team besides the bottom teams in the draft, talking about like the Chiefs, should take a running back this high. That's just me though. Next, we're going to move to the Jets. And again, this is where we're going to have a lot of our the discrepancies here, so we'll keep it quick. I got Mason Graham going here because we got Aaron Glenn, a defensive coach. The Jets they're a team that needs help everywhere. So I'm interested to see who you have here.
Tyler Warren, man, I think he is such a good player. Like when you watch him, I just can't find any flaws in his game. I think the one knock on his profile is that he was a 5th-year player in college. So he's coming in a little bit older than you'd like to see, but just such a good weapon. And they've already got Garrett Wilson there. They've already got Breece Hall there, but I think they need somebody else. And you look at what Tyler Warren can do getting involved in the run game. I think that is also something that they want to have, kind of a run-heavy game plan under Aaron Glenn with Justin Fields. It just makes a lot of sense. I will say Jeff Bell over at Footballguys has poured cold water on this take. He thinks that they're running it back with the all Ohio State, with Justin Fields, Garrett Wilson, and then Jeremy Ruckert out of Ohio State as well. So he thinks that they're content with Ruckert there. But I just look at what Tyler Warren can do. He is such a game changer. I think it's a lot like last year where, there wasn't a pressing need for the Raiders to take Brock Bowers, but he fell to a point where they just had to take best player available. And looking at who's on the board right now, I think Tyler Warren's the best player available. And I think it makes sense for the Jets to add another offensive weapon.
Yeah. Tyler Warren was one where I was like, well, he has to go. Well, he has to go. Well, he has to go at some point. And it's just, again, it's hard for me to justify a team taking a tight end that high. And I don't think he's Brock Bowers good. That's just me. And
this so is like them fantasy going football brain rot bleeding into my mock draft. I realize that he might not go this high, but I love Tyler Warren, man. He's a fun player to watch.
what's crazy, I was looking at mocks today, though. You're not the only one who's mocking him to the Jets. Like, that's like, you're not, and it's not just fantasy guys who are doing that. So I'm not trying to like poo poo all over all over your mock here, or just to Tyler Warren. It's just hard. I just don't see it, guys. And I think that, again, he deserves to go in the first round. It's just teams don't deserve to take him in the first round is what I feel like here. And I actually meant to see this like in our Origins tournament. Hopping back a little bit to Shedeur Sanders, he's 5th right now coming, and that seems risky when you consider that he could go to somewhere like the Raiders. Tyler Warren is all the way down to 12th here, and you're taking Jackson Dart ahead, Emeka Egbuka ahead. I'd probably want to take Tyler Warren, especially if you're going to play the exposure game earlier than not. I know I'm in a dynasty startup right now, and I'm literally letting everyone else take the tight ends early, and I'm trying to get some of these wide receivers because I'm going to get Tucker Kraft, and I'm just going to hammer these rookies. Like, one of you guys are going to pan out, and it'll be fine.
I've been doing the Origins draft, and there's a guy we're going to talk about in round 1. I don't know if you've got him inside of round 1, but there's a guy that I've currently got 80% exposure to in these Origin drafts that I expect to be a first rounder.
Ooh, I wonder where, because I got a spicy one here. I wouldn't say spicy, but it feels spicy. Next, we have the Panthers. Don't get cute, guys. Get Tet McMillan.
Yeah.
It's Drake London, guys. Mike Evans type. Everyone like, well, he doesn't. Shut up. Just draft him. He's a good player, and the Panthers desperately need someone of this caliber. We can't. He's a good yak guy, so you get all the things that you thought you were going to get with. Well, except really gets a good yak guy. I won't take that away from him, but you get that in more with him, and then Leggett can be a tertiary character in the story that is the Panthers offense, like he should be, and not the main guy. Is that who you got going there?
I do, yeah. And you look last year, like, I think there are good receivers on this Carolina Panthers offense, but they were all playing the wrong roles. Leggett is not an X. Like, you put Leggett in the slot, and he can feast there. And then you put Jalen Coker out as a flanker. He can do what he does best, stretching the field. And Tet McMillan is that perfect X receiver that kind of needs to put this. So not only does he make sense for them and what they need, but then it also puts Leggett and Coker in roles that they're better suited for. I think this just unlocks the entire Panthers offense. And there is a big disparity. I feel like a lot of fantasy football people are putting Tet McMillan to the Panthers. When you look at a lot of the NFL mock drafts that like NFL analysts are coming out with, he's falling into the 20s. But man, you look at it, Dave Canales, whether it was DK Metcalf or Mike Evans, he's always needed that big-bodied receiver that can go up and make contested catches in his offense. And that's exactly what Tet McMillan does best.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Bryce, especially someone like Bryce, needs like a big target that's just reliable. And it would be, and especially when you think about what Dave Canales has done with like Mike Evans. And I hate when we say, well, he's going to be in the Mike Evans role, because not all these receivers are interchangeable. In this case, if they feel like clones, kind of like Drake London and Tet. So it's really hard for me to not mock him or let him fall any further here. The Saints, these are another one of these teams where you're just like, well, excuse my French, what the fuck are you guys doing, man? Like, what are we doing here? You need everything, and you have no money. You need a quarterback.
That's all that they need, a quarterback. They had the out for Derek Carr this year, and they chose not to take it, which is crazy.
They didn't take it. Yeah, I don't get it. Well, is Derek Carr he just must be the most charming guy on the planet. He must just light up a room when he walks in. He's like any blonde girl from a documentary. He's just like, they light up the room every time he comes in and just brings a smile to your face. He comes in Bible in hand. He's like a mascara on, and he really charms it. He must be the greatest salesman ever. I put Mykel Williams here. He's a good player. And they need good players. That's it. I have no analysis beyond that.
You know who another good player is that's still available on my board? Ashton Jeanty. And I think that would make a ton of sense at pick number 9. I don't think he's going to fall outside of the top 10. And because I think the Raiders need a quarterback more than a running back, that's why I have them going with Sanders. And if Jeanty does fall here, it just makes so much sense. And, oh, my God, could you imagine how fun that backfield would be? Short term, but Alvin Kamara and Ashton Jeanty in the same backfield. Sure, Kamara's entering his age 30 season. He's not the player he was years ago, but that just gives Kellen Moore even more firepower to play with on offense. And then they can kind of set themselves up for the twilight of Kamara's career and then make Ashton Jeanty that kind of heir apparent. And it seems like Mykel Williams always does this. Like they like to use first round picks on offensive skill players. So it just feels like it kind of fits with the Saints MO as well. And I just can't imagine Ashton Jeanty making it past this spot.
Agree 1,000%. Cause like when I was mocking him, I was like Raiders, Saints, and then the next team that we're going to talk about, if he was going to go there, I thought he was going to go to the Bears, but I have Armand Membou going here.
This has been I'm a Bears fan. I wear it proudly. This has been like my dream pick for the last few months, and I see more and more mocks falling this way. This would just be amazing.
Yeah, this was like Membou, someone I saw you talking about him, so I'm like, well, let's pop on the tape, and I get it, and I almost wanted the Pats to go and do it, because this is one where I could see the Pats trading out, and like if we don't get Will Campbell, we'll get Membou or something. We're fine with that, and we'll get some extra capital. And I'm guessing you still have the Bears taking Membou here, right?
I do, yeah. And I think a lot of people see the trades and the free agency acquisitions. They brought in Jonah Jackson and Joe Thuney and Drew Dahlman and all these guys, but they have Darnell Wright, who they invested a top 10 pick in a couple of years ago, and he's been okay. Probably hasn't lived up to his draft potential. And they've gotten formidable play from Braxton Jones at left tackle, but he's a 5th round pick, and formidable, isn't anything to write home about. Membou right now, he might have to start his career to guard. He's a very developmental guy. So I think that him learning from Joe Thuney, he can take over whether an injury pops up or next year or something like that. Also has the elasticity to move to tackle in the future and be that upgrade from Braxton Jones. But really, when you look at Ben Johnson offenses, he likes these really athletic linemen. They can get out and kind of be that lead blocker. They've got that in Drew Dahlman. They've got that in Joe Thuney. They've got that in Darnell Wright. And I think adding Membou is just another versatile weapon that they can have on the offensive line. I've been a Bears fan my whole life. No team has ever invested in protecting a quarterback. They keep making the same mistake over and over again. They draft these quarterbacks early. They don't give them the protection they need, and they regress. This seems like the first time, Ryan Poles, former offensive lineman, Ben Johnson built out the team in Detroit through the offensive line, and it seems like now the front office and the coaching staff are aligned in that same mindset of protecting Caleb Williams, and this is the finishing piece to just give them a completely new look offensive line going into 2025.
Agree 100%. And astute analysis on your team. That was like a borderline a beat report, dog. Yeah, and it's the Bears they're the opposite. Like, this is where these teams are like fun, best available. Yeah. It's not like the Saints best available or the Browns best available. This is just like, hey man, like, who's going to help us make that playoff push? And Armand Membou is like, it's a need. Like, I won't say the Bears have zero needs, but they are in a lot better position for success than a lot of these other guys are.
There's some teams that need to take best available because the entire roster sucks. And then there's some teams that get the benefit of taking best available because they don't have any glaring weaknesses. Yeah. And I think, like the Lions are another one of those teams. They don't have a glaring weakness. They can take whatever they want. That's a fun position to be in.
Yeah, it's like basically the NFC North, with the exception of the Packers, right? Because the Packers, like, we'll get to them. Yeah. They're sneaky, shaky. And actually, this next team we're going to talk about, the 49ers are not in a good spot.
A lot of needs.
They have a lot of needs and a lot of, more importantly, they have expectations. I have them taking Kelvin Banks here. I like Kelvin Banks a lot. I know a lot of people don't like Kelvin Banks as much as I do. Man, Trent Williams is 1,000 years old. He's still good, but Father Time's undefeated. And everyone talks about, well, Brock Purdy fell apart. That offensive line fell apart, and that defense isn't quite as good as it was. And they lost Dre Greenlaw. I almost put Jalen Walker here, but you need to do what you have talent in right now, which is offense. You have talent on your offensive line. You have Brock Purdy. Save yourself by at least having a productive offense and take some of this defensive depth later. Who you got going to the 49ers?
I've got Will Johnson going there. They just lost Javarius Ward in free agency, and they've got Diamador Lenore and Renardo Green. They've got some good, promising young pieces there, but Will Johnson is just a blue-chip cornerback, and I think that drafting him can allow them to push Renardo Green into more of a nickel corner where he'd be a little bit more comfortable. Like you said, there's a lot of needs here. And I think that it makes a lot of sense to go with Kelvin Banks. I could easily see them doing that. I've got him falling a couple more picks down, but Will Johnson, just a standout player at Michigan over the last couple of years and fills the immediate need that they have by losing Javarius Ward.
Yeah, Will Johnson's another one where I'm just like, he's falling because
somebody's got to take him.
Someone's got to take him, and these other teams need him. One of my target, I think someone might trade up for Will Johnson here. Like I could see the Saints could need Will Johnson. Like again, the Saints are bad best available, so they could take Will Johnson there. This was a guy that was going top 5 for a lot of mocks for a long time up until we got into the draft process. So I could see him going even earlier than this. And this would be an excellent value. Next, the Cowboys, they're another one like, man, they seem like they have more needs than they really should. So I took best available and I pick what do they need to fix the most? What do they got the most complaints with? You spent a lot of money on Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb. You got Javonte Williams, which I think is fine. That's actually, I think, a great pickup. So you take the pressure off needing a running back this early. I have Matthew Golden here. He's staying in Texas. I think he's the perfect complement to CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is great in the slot, the flanker. Matthew Golden can live outside. He's also versatile. So to me, it's just a perfect player here for the Cowboys and someone who keeps creeping up in a lot of people's big boards here. And a lot of people think he's the wide receiver too, and he is the second wide receiver I have off the board, depending on what you think about Travis Hunter. Where are you at with the Cowboys, Dave?
Matthew Golden, yeah, same pick
Jesus
here.
Christ,
We're pretty aligned on a lot of these, but it just makes so much sense. And I thought this was a little bit high for Golden, but glad to see that you're there as well. Raised in Houston, played high school football in Houston, played college in Austin, staying in Dallas. It just makes so much sense. And Jag, I don't know if you remember who the player comp was for Matthew Golden in our rookie guide. It was Brandon Cooks. They just lost Brandon Cooks in free agency. Like, talk about filling in a need. And then you look, with Brian Schottenheimer being there, the way that this offense is going to work, it's going to be a run-heavy attack that really focuses on play action. And when you have a guy like Matthew Golden that can just consistently get behind defenses, this is kind of what they need in that Schottenheimer offense. You already talked about how he's a perfect complement to CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb can kind of be that target monster, while Matthew Golden can be the guy that stresses defenses vertically. So just makes so much sense. And they have needed a wide receiver too behind CD for a long time. So I love this pick, and I'd be shocked if they don't go with Matthew Golden if he's still there at 12.
Yeah, it just seems like the guy to go at that point. Luther Burden I like a lot, but again, you got to think about like building a basketball team here, and Matthew Golden I just think is a better offensive fit because you want Burden to play almost in the same role as CD is, from the flanker, a lot of time spent in the slot. Right now, Golden is another one where in our Origins tournament, he's going 14 right now, behind Travis Hunter, behind Tyler Warren, behind Jackson Dart. I like Golden better than Egbuka. Egbuka, I worry, is a better football player than he is fantasy, but I'm not saying don't bet on him. Matthew Golden has a profile that I think you should bet on first, if that makes sense, guys. Golden, great player. Egbuka, great player. It's just for fantasy. I'd just rather have Golden ahead of that. Next, we're going to go to the Dolphins here. Another team that needs everything and nothing, and I don't know what they're doing. I don't even know if what's his face Mike McDonald is even Mike McDaniel's even good as a coach, but they do need interior offensive line. When you run outside zone scheme and your rushing attack, and you see where they've struggled, which is to protect Tua and to stop that interior pressure. This might be high and this might be spicy. Go get Gray Zabel. He's really, really jumped up a lot of draft boards. I know he started at tackle. A lot of people think he's going to play center, if not guard. If he turns out to be one of the top 5 best interior offensive linemen, I don't think anyone cares how early he's going here. Lots of needs here, so I'm interested in where you have him, where you have the Dolphins going.
Same position, different player. You talked about Kelvin Banks earlier. He's been a big riser for me, and I've got him going here at 13, especially now you got Teron Armstead is mulling retirement. I don't know if you saw that. He reworked his contract to go down to a vet minimum so they could possibly look at some other options here in free agency or in the draft. And I think it just makes a lot of sense, especially Miami kind of being a run-first team. You look at it, Kelvin Banks, I mean, he's been paving the way for Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson and Jonathan Brooks and Jaden Blue. I mean, he's been that guy at Texas for the last few years. Makes a ton of sense for them here. And, they lost good interior linemen last year going into free agency and then just ignored it for whatever reason and said, we'll be fine without him. Well, Tua Tagovailoa had the highest sack rate of his career. The run game did not have the spark that it has had in years past. So hopefully they learn from that mistake and now make these investments in their offensive line. And if they lose Teron Armstead, which is looking increasingly more likely, they might not have a choice. They might just have to reach for best O-line available here.
I agree 100%. Yeah, they got to go O-line. They have some holes on defense. But again, defense is so deep that I think you're better off taking your needs, like especially if you need like receivers, offensive line where it's shallow. Get those guys now and then make those bets later. Next, the Colts. Here's where I said, wow, we have when need meets just a great player, and he might not be here. I have Tyler Warren going here. They need a tight end. The Colts have been in this perpetual cycle of let's hope that one of these 5th and 6th round athletes work out, and it hasn't here.
So we're giving up on Jelani Woods. Is that what you're saying?
I never was in on Jelani Woods.
Cox, we're not holding on to hope.
Not holding that candle, man. Just get Tyler Warren and whoever is playing quarterback. There's zero excuses for you not to be productive. You have someone that works out for the rushing attack. You have someone that can protect Richardson. You have someone who's a target. You have Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce. You have one of the most complete receiving cores right now. And that helps everyone, right? It just makes no sense why he would fall this far, or far much further past here, because if the Colts don't draft him here, I think another team might trade up and draft him here. Who do you got the Colts taking?
Yeah, I had Tyler Warren going off the board quite a bit earlier. And I do understand that they have a need for tight end. But again, I was talking with Jeff Bell a couple of weeks ago, and I mentioned that the Colts, it seems like every year they need a tight end and they never draft a tight end. And Jeff made a good point. He goes, why do they need a tight end when they've got Michael Pittman? He might be a wide receiver, but he's basically the tight end in that offense. And it seems like they're comfortable using him as that kind of safety blanket across the middle of the field. So I think if Tyler Warren does fall this far, it would be crazy for them not to take him. But with me already having Tyler Warren off the board, I'm going with Jalen Walker here. They went out and they brought in Lou Anarumo. And if you look at two of the guys that kind of anchored that Cincinnati defense over the years, Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson, two guys that are kind of that blend that can play edge or can also drop back in coverage, can also pass rush while also getting involved in the run game. And Jalen Walker is that really versatile piece. Now, the Colts already have a lot of versatile pieces, these kind of tweeners that are kind of positionless on their defensive line and in their linebacking core. So I think that adding a guy like Jalen Walker into that mix just allows for so much creativity in what Lou Anarumo wants to do. So makes sense for me if he falls here to 14, but there's quite a few needs for the Colts, and it's not just on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah. Colts are, dare I say it, they're reaching the fucked section here, because it's like Anthony Richardson in fantasy. I'm done. Like I tried to sell him for a second and a third, and I got rejected. I'm like, oh man, it's already too late.
Yeah.
It's just like it's already too late, man.
You guys are gonna go buy some Daniel Jones instead.
Yeah, and I think it's like a combination of things. It's like Anthony Richardson isn't developing. I don't believe in Shane Steichen anymore. He's one of those coaches that every time he talks, I'm like, I don't know if he knows what he's talking about. It's like every time I'm just I'm leaving not feeling great. I feel like he's the opposite of Derek Carr. You leave a room with Shane Steichen, you feel cold and uncertain inside. So I don't know, man. But I do love your pick of Jalen Walker. That's one where I juggled Tyler Warren, Jalen Walker, and Nick Emenwari here because, again, they could use everything and nothing. They need everything but wide receiver, essentially. That's the only thing that they don't need on that team. Where are we at now? Next, we are at the Falcons. dare I say, everything and nothing. Really, they need a lot of help on defense. They need a lot of defensive help here. So I went with Mike Green. Everyone likes Mike Green more than I do. He's a small school guy. It's not that I don't think he's a good edge rusher. I just worry that he's not going to be the every down guy that a lot of people are drafting him to be. I don't know where you're at with Mike Green or where you're at with the Falcons. Who's your pick?
I have Mike Green falling a few more picks down just because the combine validated some of the concerns that we had about the size, but I've got him going same position here. Shamar Stewart, 9.99 relative athletic score. This dude just absolutely lit the combine up. Pass rush was arguably the biggest weak spot for the Falcons last year, and he's got the physical traits that teams really, really like. So I think if Shamar Stewart falls here to 15, the Falcons just need to go out and get him. And there's some other good edge players available, but I think the upside for Shamar Stewart after seeing that athleticism is so hard to ignore.
I agree 100%. And he's going 99 in our D-Up tournament. That's someone that I would take. Like, he's going behind Kaiser White, Devin Lloyd, which are linebackers. Yeah. But I think that like he has the potential to go much higher if he is one of these like right away 10, 15 sack guy. So I love this here. Like Mike Green is one where I'm not gonna lie, guys. Some of these I'm putting up because of the vibes and where everyone else has them, and I'm trying to listen more than I actually like them because I would prefer Shamar Stewart over Mike Green there. All right. Next, we're going to keep on chugging. The Cardinals, here's where I have Will Campbell going. They would be lucky if he fell this far, and that's someone I think might trade up for him. The
Will
Bengals...
Johnson, right?
Will Johnson. Sorry, not Will Campbell. Yeah, Will Johnson. If I'm the Bengals, I'm screaming because I just got sniped. There's someone that I'd want to go here. What direction do you have the Cardinals going? Because they have a lot of holes, but they're kind of moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and it seems like, they've tried so hard to put pieces around Kyler Murray, and I think they've done it at this point. They've got Marvin Harrison Jr. there. They've got Trey McBride. I don't think they need to keep putting pieces around him. It seems like this offseason they've kind of changed their sights to beefing up the defense a little bit. And if you look, Jonathan Gannon, former defensive coordinator for the Eagles, they built that defense through the defensive line, and they went out and they got Josh Sweat this year on a $76 million contract. They've got Justin Jones, who has been playing edge, but he's kind of got that ability to move inside. So I've got Mykel Williams going here, and if they've got Josh Sweat and Mykel Williams on each side of the edge with Justin Jones, who has just been that locker room glue guy for the last few years, never really misses a game, that suddenly makes their pass rush, which was one of their biggest weaknesses last year. Now all of a sudden they've got one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. So I think it makes a lot of sense for them to do that, just because we've seen this is how Jonathan Gannon has built his teams in years past.
I agree. I like the pick a lot. Again, it's like Will Johnson is like, how far is he going to fall here type thing. Mm-hmm. The Bengals, they finally figured it out. They locked up their offense. Everyone's happy. T. Higgins is paid. Jamar Chase is paid. Joe Burrow's paid. My fantasy teams know what's going on. Defensively, they lost Trey Hendrickson, and they've lost a lot of players. So Jalen Walker, this is where he's going to go. Yeah. They need a guy that's a stud. It's hard for me to see him fall this far. Mykel Williams would be good here. Any of these guys who just went, the Bengals need. They could use Mike Green.
They'll be
Shamar
punching
Stewart.
air. The way my mock is set up with 3 edge players going off right before, they'll be furious if it happens that way.
Oh, okay. So I guess with the Bengals here, who do you got going for him right now?
Luther Burden. No, I'm totally kidding.
Oh, I was like, what? I was like,
no, if they don't go defense here, I mean, they have to. And the way that I've got it right now, like I said, I had Mykel Williams going to Arizona, Shamar Stewart going to the Falcons, and well, I guess there's some edges available, but I have them going with Jahdae Barron here. They just really don't have anybody opposite Cam Taylor-Britt. They moved Dax Hill from safety down to cornerback, hoping that would help kind of resuscitate his career, but it didn't work out for him. So I think going Jahdae Barron here helps him out. But really, I mean, the one thing you can lock in stone is that the Bengals are probably going defense in round 1.
Jahdae Barron's one of my favorite corners. I know everyone's just like, well, he's a slot cornerback. Newsflash, folks, it's 2025. Slot cornerback's a starting cornerback. Mm-hmm. And like you said, the Dax Hill there, I'm like, he is not good. He is like not good. Yeah, donezo. Love it. So we'll keep moving down the board here. Like you said, they would be punching air, but unfortunately they need everything on defense right now. The Seahawks. Ooh, baby, what is you doing? That's all I got to say for them is they got Sam Darnold. JSN's a wide receiver one, as a prophecies foretold. They did just get Dexter Lawrence, I believe. Is that? Yeah, they just got Dexter Lawrence there. Their secondary's pretty good, but they still have a lot of holes. I have them going Kenneth Grant here. Kenneth Grant's another one who I think people forgot that he's almost just as good as Mason Graham. But the defensive class and the D linemen, the linebackers, edge rushers are so deep that he's getting pushed down. And Seahawks are another team where they're in a position to go best available, even though they're kind of on the cusp of being a playoff team. So I'm curious of where you have them drafting.
This is where I've got Mike Green going, and I thought it was Dexter Lawrence too. It's DeMarcus Lawrence that they brought in.
DeMarcus Lawrence, sorry, yeah,
a little bit of an older guy, and they probably want to start, prepping for the future here. He's probably not the long-term option, but I think Mike Green just makes a lot of sense for him. And the one thing that's kind of sneaky that the Seahawks pulled off here with these trades that they made is they've got 4 picks available on day 2, and they're going to be able to address a lot of weaknesses there. But I think that they do use this round 1 pick that they have on a premium position. And once you start looking at it with a lot of the edge players going off the board, Mike Green's kind of the last one standing before there's a pretty significant fall off at edge. So like I said earlier, the combine measurements were a little bit disappointing. He's not the biggest guy out there, but still think it makes sense for them to go after a premium position here, and Mike Green makes sense.
Awesome. Love it. Next we go to the Buccaneers. Buccaneers, it's weird, man. They have so many needs where they look like bad, not fun, but they're winning. So they're winning. So that's all that really matters. I have them going Shamar Stewart here. They're another one where on defense, they need everything. They need everything on defense. So they can't really go wrong. But again, you talk about that combine. It was incredible. He tore it up. So, I won't spend much time on there. I already told you where he's going in our D-Up tournament. Who do you got going here?
I've got Jihaad Campbell going here, and this is a guy that in IDP leagues I would like because I think he'd be an immediate starter. You look at Tampa Bay for years. It was Levante David and Devin White making up the best linebacking duo in the league. Well, Levante David's 35 years old now, and Devin White, he went to Las Vegas last year, so they went from having the best linebacking duo in the league to not really having any sort of long-term plan. So I think Jihaad Campbell, putting him in there to play alongside Levante David as he kind of hits the end of his career to eventually take over. I know a lot of people say he shouldn't spend a round 1 pick on off-ball linebacker, but it is a huge pressing need for him. And Campbell is a good enough player that he can do more than just playing off-ball. He can line up on the edge if he needs to. Yeah. Just makes a lot of sense for Tampa Bay here.
Yeah, that's the key. He's a freak athlete, and he's one of these guys. He's not a liability in any phase of defense. He can stop the run, he can cover the pass, and he can get to the quarterback. Dave, he's 187 in our D-Up tournament right now.
That's crazy.
He's going behind Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Kyle Duggar's pretty good. Keon White, Calais Campbell. Come on, guys.
If Campbell lands here with Tampa, I mean, he's going to have 120 plus tackles this year. Like somebody needs to tackle.
If he lands anywhere, he's going to start and land tackles. I feel like so. That's probably you want to talk about for IDP. Campbell right here is probably one of the best IDP picks, just because he plays off ball, if not being sexy for real life football. The Broncos here, oh buddy,
I think we might agree. I think we might agree on this one. I'm interested to see who you went with.
This is you want to talk about fantasy, just all the things. One of my favorite players. I have Trevion Henderson going here to the Broncos.
All right.
I think
love it.
They have a need at running back. I almost went Amari and Hampton here, but this is I feel like he's more of the Deshaun Payton guy because he could do a little bit of that Joker stuff. I know they have Evan Ingram, but you know what's cool? A running back who can catch passes. He's something, but you're right. He's not at this level. So yeah, Trevion Henderson goes here, man. I think we have another what's his name? We have another Jahmyr Gibbs situation where I think that the tier to RB2 is a lot closer than a lot of people think here.
Yeah.
Who do you got going?
And I've got Travion Henderson as my RB2, but I think NFL is going to prefer Amari Hampton just because he's got the size, I mean.
Is that who you have going here?
I do. I've got Omari Hampton going to Denver. And I mean, we heard Tony Pauline out of Indianapolis said that a lot of teams have Omari Hampton ranked ahead of Ashton Jeanty. I prefer Travion Henderson. Maybe it's just the selfish Bears fan in me. Won't mock Travion Henderson in round 1 because I hope that he's there at the top of round 2 for the Bears to take. They got pick 39 and pick 41, and I'd love if he's there. But Omari Hampton, just a huge bruising back who can kind of do it all. And I think the Travion Henderson makes a lot of sense because he's very Alvin Kamara-ish. But when I see Omari Hampton, he's very Mark Ingram-ish, and we've seen Sean Payton's offenses kind of find success with both archetypes of running backs.
Yeah, dude. For me, it was the Patriots don't need him, so I just wanted to go first round here. It's like that's what it was for me. But Amari and Hampton, I'm like, sign me up, buddy. Yeah. Either way, I don't care. Like whoever goes here at running back is going in one of the best situations. Next for Pittsburgh, everyone's doing it. I'm doing it. It's because they're fucked, folks. It's Jackson Dart going here. when you're in a competition for Aaron Rodgers, that's not a good place to be in. That's not a great place to be in. So I would rather have Dart go at least to a place where he has a quick chance to start. And I'm not saying that he's overrated because I think he's just as good, but I think it's important for us to recognize that the entire quarterback class isn't as good as we normally are, and he's the QB3. So that's kind of where I'm at. Like, we're hoping he's better than Kenny Pickett. So I don't know who you have going here.
And I mean, we did see the Steelers used, I think it was pick 20 or 21 on Kenny Pickett a couple of years ago, kind of picking from the same spot in the draft, and they went quarterback. I don't know how you're going to feel about this one, Jagger. I've got him going Jalen Milroe. So same idea. They desperately need a quarterback, but you look at it, I mean, we know the type of quarterback that they want. You look back at Arthur Smith, back to his days in Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill, or whether it was with Desmond Ridder or Marcus Mariota. Last year they tried with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. They want a very athletic guy with a big arm. And I think them going out and bringing in DK Metcalf to play opposite George Pickens, they want to install that type of offense where they have a mobile quarterback who can take the deep shots downfield. Jackson Dart can do that, but Jalen Milroe can do it better. And I think that we got way over our skis over the last decade or so going after these really toolsy quarterbacks. And I think that the bad careers for Trey Lance and Justin Fields, still story being written, Anthony Richardson, I think that has kind of scared people off from some of these guys. But I think if Jalen Milroe was in the draft 5 years ago, he'd be garnering top 5, top 10 consideration. But because of some of the recent memory of some of these guys who have face planted, I think it opens up a nice opportunity for them to get a quarterback for cheap here. Now, he might have to redshirt year 1, take that developmental process. But what else are they going to do? It's Skylar Thompson and Mason Rudolph in there. Why not swing for the fences with Jalen Milroe, who is maybe the most athletic quarterback we've seen coming into the draft in the last 20 years?
Dave, I hate this.
I'm sorry. I think it would be a lot of fun.
I hate that. You over Jackson Dart. I need you to justify that. Because
I have Jackson Dart ranked ahead for full visibility here. I have Jackson Dart as my QB3 and Jalen Milroe as my QB4, but it's the schematic fit here. Like we know, we saw Mike Tomlin was interested in Justin Fields years ago. He was interested in Anthony Richardson years ago. And now I think if Milroe is there at 21, they can get that type of quarterback to build the offense that Tomlin has been dreaming of.
All right.
Next pick.
Everyone boo Dave in the comments. For fantasy, we don't want that. Man,
we want it for Jalen Milroe for fantasy. We don't want it for DK Metcalf and George Pickens.
It's just it blow my mind. The Steelers, that'd be the ultimate L for them. They're like, you know what we need? A worse Justin Fields. Like that'd be crazy. But I mean, I've seen crazier things here. The Chargers, I went nice and easy, baby. Colston Loveland. A lot of people are worried about Ladd McConkey because, what if they get Loveland? Cool. That means Lad McConkey doesn't have double coverage all the time.
Yep.
Loveland's great. I think he is as close to the tight end one as Warren is. Everyone thinks I'm wild that I just don't think that Warren is the unquestionable tight end one. That doesn't mean I think Warren sucks. I just think that Colson Loveland's that good. His quarterback, name his quarterback, Dave.
From 2 years ago, I could tell you, but I couldn't even tell you who it was last year.
Thank you for proving that point, guys. Yeah, that's Michigan to have a quarterback. He was their best target. He was their best target when Roman Wilson was there. This is a no-brainer for me. Who do you got going?
Yeah, Colson Loveland. I think he might get drafted earlier. Actually, in my
Maybe.
first mock 1.0, I had him going to the Saints at 9. It seems like he started to fall down draft boards a little bit. I don't really get it, but there's no chance he's making it past Harbaugh.
Yeah. And it's like, let's say he does go earlier. Oh no, Mason Taylor. I still think he's great. You still got a great guy. Congratulations. Yeah, all in on Colson Loveland there, and he's probably quick to creep up in the first round or top of the second in rookie drafts and in our Origins tournament if that actually happens. Next, we got the Green Bay Packers. We joked, man, this team it's not fun. I can't say I'm excited. I'm not a Packers fan, though. I have been going to Mykel Williams here. I'm not in love with this pick, but you got to think where they're at now. Romeo Doubs deserves to be a starter, but maybe not be the guy. Then you got Jaden Reed, who could be a flanker in a slot. And Mykel Williams could come in and be your Amon-Ra St. Brown, even though I don't think he's technically as good as him, and earn targets. I don't love this. I just feel like Mykel Williams is going to go in this range, and someone's got to take him. Where are you at?
I mean, this would cause people to lose their minds because they'd be like, oh, they already have Jaden Reed. What are they doing? But, we see these types of players can coexist with each other. So I do like that pick, but I've got him going James Pierce here. Opposite Rashawn Gary, they don't really have anybody who is generating much of a pass rush. Lucas Van Ness just hasn't developed the way that they'd hope. I think he'd be better as kind of a rotational, situational guy. And if they can have Rashawn Gary and James Pierce as their two edge rushers, that sets them up pretty nice. And you'll see, over these next few picks, we've got the Packers, the Vikings, and the Lions all picking. And I have them all kind of shoring up the defense as this NFC North is getting a little bit tougher to play in. I think all of these teams are going to start hitting the defense pretty hard.
100%. James Pierce is another one. I had him going top 10 often. And I still think he's in any other draft, he's a top 5 guy. He's really versatile. I think he's a little bit better off ball, can cover the pass. One of my favorite players, and we're getting entirely too cute with sometimes. Vikings here, Derek Harmon. That's how they're going. Interior. They seem pretty set that they're going to go D-line. I know interior D-line's a huge need. My boy Thor Nystrom, he keeps mocking him there. So I'm doing this for Thor. Here's your guy, Thor. I hope that the Vikings are watching this and listening. So
yeah, and they already went out and got Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave this offseason. So they've already beefed up that offensive or defensive line, but I think they go to it as well. I've got the same position, different guy. I've got Kenneth Grant going here, defensive interior lineman out of Michigan. But yeah, same thing. I think that a lot of these NFC North teams are really going to be trying to beef up the pass rush, beef up that frontline protection, as it seems like the NFC North has been swinging heavily towards offense. I think we see it swing back towards defense this year.
We got a good old-fashioned beef off in the NFC North. Next, we have the Texans here. The Texans are in best available, but again, they're in the fun best available mode where they even need wide receiver. So I almost put Luther Burden here, but they need to fix that offensive line, and it was a huge problem across that whole offense. So you got a number one in Nico Collins. Maybe you can get Jalen Noel or some of these other guys that may fall that we like as a wide receiver too. But I have Josh Simmons, who can play maybe tackle or slide in, and it feels an immediate need.
Yeah, that's exactly who I've got too. I mean, their offensive line was the worst in the league last year. And then they traded away their best offensive lineman. I mean, it would be malpractice for them to do anything besides draft offensive line here. If Simmons is off the board, they're screwed because there's a pretty big tier fall off after him. But they might be reaching for a day 2 guy here, trying to trade back. I mean, they need offensive line because what we saw, the regression from CJ Stroud from year 1 to year 2 is scary. And they need to stop that regression ASAP. And that starts by getting him protection.
I know. I know. When I was shocked that they traded their best off, like literally, I can't even get the words out because I saw that I'm like, wow, this guy's been like a highly rated PFF, been a stud everywhere he's gone, doesn't seem to fall off. You struggle at offensive line, you trade him. I guess that's why I'm not a GM. So
So
I'm
he's a
glad that
locker
we.
room guy. That's the word out of Houston is that he just wasn't a good locker room guy.
That it Laramie Tunsil. He's had those problems since college though.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
unfortunate. I know Walter Milam or Wyatt Milam, sorry, for West Virginia is someone I think no one's talking enough about, but that could be for a reason. Next, we're gonna go to the Rams. The Rams are turning it around and with defense, which is crazy. I have them going defense again. They've kind of fixed that front end. Their secondary, they got Cameron Curl. They got some good things going in, but they still need corners. Maxwell Hairston tore it up at the combine. I love his length. Some of these cornerbacks crazy because like Siobhan Revel would be probably cornerback two. I know the Notre Dame guys, Benjamin Morrison Jr. I really like, but he's got injured. I could see him going, but Maxwell Hairston just did his job and came out and balled out. So I love him going to the Rams here. Who do you got?
Malachi Starks was a guy who was getting mocked in the top 10 and then had a disastrous combine week. But I think the Rams are just a pretty savvy team. And if they see a guy like Malachi Starks fall, who was a huge difference maker at Georgia last year, I'd be shocked to see them pass. But same ideology as you, that, they've already kind of fixed the front end of that defense, especially with that Jared Verse pick. But they still need help in the secondary. And I think Malachi Starks could be that guy.
Yeah, I like that pick as well. Malachi Starks has fallen out of the first for me, but I never was the biggest fan. But again, I'm not like hating on yours at all either. Just because like he was like almost a top 5 pick at some point there. Like he was the number 1 safety there for a minute. Next, we have the Ravens here, and the Ravens are going to do what the Ravens do in my mock. Even though I like Jahdae Barron, I have him falling, and I have the Ravens picking him up, which feels an immediate need there. On defense, they could go offensive line, which they need to do, but like you said, it kind of dries up as soon as Josh Simmons goes. So who do you have falling?
Emeka Egbuka, and they have gone to the wide receiver well early and often in the Lamar Jackson era. We've seen him do it with Marquise Brown. We've seen him do it with Rashad Bateman. We've seen him do it with Zay Flowers, and I think they might do it again here with Emeka Egbuka. And it just makes sense because last year they kind of had to switch to playing out of base 12 personnel because they didn't have that wide receiver 3. And I'll say a lot of the same things that I was saying earlier when talking about Tet McMillan in Carolina. I think that by drafting Egbuka, a pure slot player, it pushes the other guys into positions that they're better in. Zay Flowers played a lot out of the slot last year, but if you watch his tape from Boston College, he was beating people outside consistently. And I think that he could do that as well. So put Egbuka in the slot, he can get going in the run game as well, which is very important for a team with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. I think it makes a lot of sense here. And this is a team that, like I said, has not shied away from just consistently drafting round 1 wide receivers.
I agree 100%. With at least them taking receivers, I don't know if they do, because they brought in D-Hop. They seem to like Bateman a lot. So it's just, if anything, this is one of those picks, man, where you're like, Emeka Egbuka is going to go. And if the Ravens are going to, like, maybe they trade back or something. So it's almost like the slot I like more than the position. Keep chugging along with the Lions. Lions need defensive line help. That was the biggest thing that they struggled with was consistently generating pressure. James Pierce falls for me. I know he's already off the board for you. So who do you have going here?
Same position, and I was hoping that you would draft this guy here, so you would have to say his name, and I wouldn't. That edge rusher out of Boston College.
From Boston College. Yeah.
Ezrawaku, I think it is. Shred me in the comments if I got that one wrong, but that is the one. Like, if you had to say it's crazy to say that, like, the biggest position of need for the Lions is a position that's already filled by Aiden Hutchinson, but that's just how freaking good this depth chart is. So, like, they can use somebody to play opposite Aiden Hutchinson, who's coming back from an injury as well. But man, he's just so good. And he's one of those guys who's kind of versatile as well, where he can drop back in coverage if need be. He can go in the run game. He's got the speed and the tenacity to be an edge rusher as well in the pass game. I mean, he can do it all. And the Lions are in a very unique position where they can just take anybody that they want. And, this also happens to be a premium position for them.
I agree 1,000%. Next, we're back to some fun fantasy relevant stuff. At least for me, it's the Washington Commanders. I know that they just got Deebo Samuel. I don't think Debo's good anymore, guys.
I'm really hoping you pick my guy here.
Is it Luther Burden?
No. All right. We were almost there.
Same position.
Same position. Huh? I went Trey Harris, but let's hear your Luther Burden, and then I'll talk about Trey Harris.
Oh, I'm a Trey Harris hater. So this is going to be fun here. Luther Burden, he did everything right at the combine. He came in bigger than what we thought. The tape, and especially if you look at a lot of what Matt Harmon's charted, shows that he can play outside and is not just a gadget guy. Man, it's just that they sucked on offense. So regardless, let's say even if Deebo is good, do you really think De'Ami Brown needs to be the wide receiver 3? I don't think so. And you have a younger guy that can help in the future. Cause like Terry McLaurin's old, Deebo's old. So getting someone young right away is who I like. You like Trey Harris. I just can't get there.
So Burden, I like Burden a lot too. And in my fantasy rankings, he's currently still my wide receiver 2. But again, trying to read the tea leaves and see what other people are mocking and what these NFL insiders are saying, it seems like the NFL doesn't feel the same way about Luther Burden that we fantasy football people do. And like I said, he's my wide receiver 2. I'm a big fan of his game. And in my first mock draft, which came out about a month ago, I had Luther Burden going 13th to Miami. But now that we see him consistently falling out of round 1 by all of these very plugged-in insiders, it's tough for me to ignore. Trey Harris is a guy, though, that I understand some of your concerns about him. I think that he isn't the most well-rounded player. So much of his production came on 3 routes: screens, and verts. I mean, that's pretty much all he did at Ole Miss. But when you look at it right now, they could draft Trey Harris and they don't need him to immediately be a producer. They've got Zach Ertz, so they brought him back. They've got Terry McLaurin there. They've got Deebo Samuel there. But as you mentioned, all of those guys are old, so they can kind of slow roll Trey Harris's development to make him that guy of the future that can be the long-term wide receiver 1 for Jaden Daniels without needing the immediate production. So not only is this, something that helps Washington, but I think this is also the ideal landing spot for Trey Harris where he can maximize his ceiling.
I will say it's one of the best spots because, like you said, they don't need him. It's kind of like the Keon Coleman thing,
Exactly.
Where,
yes.
Yeah, we're going to have you go out there and it's not going to look great all the time, but you're at least going to get some burn and we don't need you to be the guy quite yet. So as far as like the spot, I think I would be more in on Harris here than almost any other team just because I really see the fit. Next, we have the Bills here. They seem to be really locked in on defense. I think they need to go wide receiver, personally speaking of Keon Coleman. Yeah. But I have Nick Emenwari going here. He's one where he is so freakishly athletic that someone needs to draft him in the first round. It's just who. So this is almost more of a placeholder, and I could see the Bills wanting him.
Yeah, and Taylor Rapp, he's been playing strong safety there since he's been in Buffalo, but when he was on the Rams, he played free safety. So he's got the ability to kind of play both of those positions, which can put Emenwari where he plays best at strong safety. And this is the pick that I had in my pre-free agency mock draft. And then, of course, they brought Damar Hamlin back, and I was like, well, maybe they won't go after. But then you look at it, they gave Damar Hamlin $2 million. That is rotational backup money. I don't think they view him as the long-term starting safety here. So I think Emenwari makes a ton of sense. And having him and Taylor Rapp as a safety duo, it would be almost impossible for any team to get a deep shot against Buffalo.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And like another thing, again, he's athletic. He's a lot like I think his best comp is from the Chargers. Help me out here, Dave.
Oh my God, it's on the tip of my tongue. I know exactly what you're talking about. The guy that always lights up Travis Kelce. I know exactly.
Derwin James Jr. Derwin James. Yeah, like he's like that where he's almost a linebacker. Or another one.
Hard-hitting dude.
Yeah, another as Kyle Hamilton for the Ravens. Like another one of these guys where like he is safety and linebacker, so he'd be probably one of the best players. Next with the Chiefs, I have a fun one here, man. I think the Chiefs are going to look at something. They're like, man, that Saquon Barkley sure is good. Ooh. I wish I had one of them. And I'm not saying Amari and Hampton is Saquon Barkley, but he is a first round caliber running back that is better than Pacheco, and he's a difference maker. People forget that running backs can be difference makers, and I think that Saquon Barkley has made them cool again. And it's a copycat league, Dave. It's a copycat league. So they're going to get their guy here. What do you think?
I would love this because I would just start sharing a bunch of Clyde Edwards-Helaire stats and be like, oh, they did it again, and then draft Amari and Hampton for cheap everywhere I can. That would be my move here.
Market manipulation.
Yeah, SEC, lock me up. I'm sorry. But no, I'd love that. That would be such a good fit. And jokes aside, I do think there would be kind of a visceral reaction from fantasy managers that they'd be a little hesitant on Hampton because of the history with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But my pick here, this is the one that I kind of alluded to earlier in the show. I said I got 80% of this guy in my best ball rosters right now. Mason Taylor. This team, they finally figured out what they need with wide receiver. They've got Xavier Worthy. They've got Rashee Rice there. But Travis Kelce is just a husk of the man he used to be. I mean, he is
to
not
say the
out there.
least.
Yeah, it just looks terrible. And they do have him under contract, but I think it makes so much sense for them to bring in Mason Taylor, a guy with strong NFL bloodline, still just 20 years old too. I mean, so young. 6'5", 250, unbelievable fluidity, 4.65 40-yard dash. I mean, he might be the most athletic tight end in this class. And I know that you look at Tyler Warren, he's got a couple of years on him and better college production, and Colson Loveland is maybe a little bit more refined at this point in his career, but you look at pure athleticism and upside, I don't know if any tight end has more of it than Mason Taylor. And to kind of let him sit for a year or two behind Travis Kelce and be that heir apparent makes so much sense. And this is one that I had in my first mock draft. I had my second mock draft, and I'm probably going to have it in my third and fourth mock draft too. I think it just makes so much sense and would be such a fun landing spot for Mason Taylor.
Yeah, and to be honest, I only disagree with you with one thing is I think he's ready right now. Like, I think he immediately comes in right now and is better than Kelce. So, like, we both had some fun ones there. Cause man, Mason Taylor right now, like, I think in our Origins tournament, he's available third and fourth round all the time. And
I've got 80% of him because he's just an auto pick for me there.
Yeah, man. It's just like sometimes like you even try not to in leagues. You're like, I just gotta, you try not to play or you at least try to play the exposure game. And it's just so easy with some of these talented guys. Last pick with the Eagles.
6'6", and he runs like a slot receiver. Like he's got such quick feet. He's got amazing hands. Like the more I watch him, I am just like, this tight end class is so good. And I was on a player profiler show recently where we were doing a mock draft, and I just kept drafting tight ends in rounds 2 and 3. And everyone told me I was crazy. I was like, we might see 9 tight ends going by the end of round 3. Like, there are so many pro-ready, hyper-athletic, really good tight ends in this class. We get really enamored by the running backs, but the tight ends are so good in this class. And Mason Taylor could easily emerge as the best.
Yeah, dude. And we haven't even talked about our we're both T-Ferg fans. Terrence Ferguson's another guy that just like in most classes, he might probably be tight end 2 or 3. And it's just so deep here that we're not even talking about him. We got the last pick, the Eagles, and we're going to do as Eagles do. I have them taking Jihaad Campbell, just because they keep doing it, man. I don't know who you got here. Wherever it is, I'm sure it's a good player.
Walter Nolan. Yeah. I mean, it's just who'd have thought a really good player falls into the Eagles' laps. And it's one of those, there's other good defensive interior linemen that are going to other teams. But, when you start looking at some of the draft needs for the teams ahead of them, there's a world where Walter Nolan just falls into their lap. And, oh my God, playing against Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis in 3-4 sets would just be a nightmare. So, yeah, this would make sense. You know what the Eagles are going to do. They're just going to take the best player available in the draft.
Yep. And I know some of these, especially on defense, we had guys fall. It's a deep class. So tell me what you think, guys. Like I said, comment who you think drafted the best, and I could set you up with $100. I'll pick one of you. $100 match deposit. Put that in the comments here. As always, we got our Origins tournament. That's going to be locked up by the drafts, so you want to get in there as soon as possible. I think we're just creeping over a third of the way full, and that keeps going faster and faster the more that people prepare.
And play against me. I've been ripping those Origin drafts for the last couple of weeks. They're fun.
Yeah, Dave's in there. Pretty much everyone's in there now. We've got Debro in there. You guys want to get in there as quickly as possible, especially since it's early. We'll have our rookie guide in there in the comments. We'll have this mock draft that I'm going to do. We'll have Dave's in there. I think that's it. As always, I'm Jagger May. That's Dave. We'll have him back on here sometimes if you guys like him. If you didn't, just let me know. Love you guys, and we'll see you on the next one.
So I thought I needed.